Hi, boys, girls, friends, neighbors, theys and gays. Welcome to the Semi-Bookish podcast. Oh, yeah! And so we're just gonna I don't have any announcements or anything like that or something fun. So I'm just gonna jump right into it and go, Grant, what are you reading?
Don't do me first. Okay.
Yeah, actually, we're not going to do Grant first. Since it's your book, you're going to tell us what you're reading right now. That isn't the book you made us read.
The turns of table.
So...
I got you, Grant.
Uno, reverse. Or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, the reverse.
Well, still playing Fallout, because
Yes.
My brain is just...
Is that tomorrow? When does that come?
April 10th.
April 10th. Okay, gotcha.
The show comes out in April. I'm super excited for it because
I have a feeling I'll have to end up watching it because Joseph just downloaded yesterday while we were, well, not yesterday, Sunday when he was bringing me back down from Davison, New Vegas. I think, I can't remember because I haven't actually ever talked to him about Fallout. I've seen him play it a few times. I think either New Vegas is his favorite or 4. It says one of the two. I can't remember which one. It might be both. But
well, the thing is, the show is going to be focusing on the California side of things.
Yeah.
Because there is an actual, thing set out there called the NCR, which is the New California Republic, which the first, second, and New Vegas all cover / deal with stuff that happens in that area specifically. So, maybe I should have started playing New Vegas instead. And then,
Do what you want.
I wanted to play 4 because I keep playing the game. It's like Skyrim where you can level up infinitely.
Yeah.
So I, continue playing the game, and so I've never actually finished it.
Oh,
the main quest line.
Sure.
I've never finished a single Fallout game. I've always started it and just...
never finished it. Yeah. I finished New Vegas and 3 multiple times, and as much as I own 1 and 2, I just haven't started it yet. But so still playing that.
Yes.
The book that I told you about last time, where I was like, I'm reading this because TikTok keeps recommending it, and I just wanted to see what the hubbub was about.
Yeah. What was it called again?
Haunting Adeline.
Oh yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah.
I read the smut scene that everyone keeps talking about and going oh girl, you don't know nothing yet, and you haven't read this scene yet, and the dark romance girlies are this is the no.
Sure. Well.
I to be honest, the hype made it better than what it actually was written like.
Sure.
The hype really just overhyped it
Yeah.
to the point where I'm just
So it just wasn't well written?
No!
Oh, all right. Well, that happens.
Like I mentioned before, it's Wattpad fanfiction girlies.
Sure.
Publish stuff, and I'm yeah, that's cute, but I want you to pull in my attention better than just, that.
Sure.
Which is fine, and not everyone reads the same. It's whatever. Yesterday I went up to Ann Arbor, and there's a bookstore up where I was at, so I was okay, fine.
Which one?
Schuler's Books.
Oh, Schuler's, okay.
Yeah, so I went up there, because, why not? And I just thought it'd be fun to just go in there, and then I left with $145 worth of books.
Well,
So, what is this guy's name?
What is it they say about playing stupid games?
So I have at my house, which is what I'm going to be starting as soon as I go home tonight.
Yes.
Malice by John Gwynn.
Ah, yes.
There was just a whole bunch. I did get the first book of one of the Anne McCafferty series, which they had brand new, never been touched.
It had to have been, was it Dragon Quest, I think is the first one?
Was it Dragon Riders of Pern, I think it was? Well,
yes, because that's the big series, but within the Dragon Riders of Pern series, there's smaller series.
It said book 1 on it.
It's probably...
Said book 1.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think Dragon Quest is the first one, but I can never remember.
Don't know, but it was cute, and I was book 1?
No, Dragon Quest is something completely different. I can never remember the first because there are 2 starting points for the Dragon Riders of Pern. Mm-hmm. One is the first book of the Harper Hall trilogy, which is different from the first book of the Dragon Riders of Pern, which is Dragonflight Dragonflight is the first one. Dragon Quest is the second one. See, I wasn't far off. But yeah.
It was pretty. I was like, oh, this is nice. I like it. I don't remember what it looks like. I'll bring it in so you can see it. But I saw it and it said book 1 on it. And I was like, oh, yes. And then book 1 of one of Michael Sullivan's series that I have at my house. And I don't remember which one it was.
Oh, okay.
I have like a whole bunch where I was like, ooh, I could read these and start catching up on the fantasy that I missed that, you know, I just never really get to read and then find out which types of fantasy I like the most. So that's, you know, how I'm going to spend my weekend.
That sounds fun. Yeah, I've heard a lot of really good things about John Gwynn's books.
It looked interesting, and the cover was pretty.
Yeah, he's got good covers.
It's white, and it's got like a sword that just like goes down the thing, and I was like, ooh. And I think they have the second one, and I have to go back up there anyways eventually because I'm getting my wisdom teeth taken out.
Oh, fine.
So I'll be able to go back in there and go get the second book before I end up going into like do things. So. Love that bookshop. It's right next to Ann Arbor District Library's Westgate branch.
It is.
So shout out to them because their library is so pretty. Oh my gosh.
It is, yeah. That's a really nice
and then
one.
shout out to Schuler's Books because there was a lot of books.
Yeah, Schuler's is a good
I was
bookstore.
like, oh my gosh, okay.
I'll have to stop by there. I've never been
It's
there
like
before.
it's like one of those like independently
it's an
owned
independent
bookstores.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. There's like board games in there. There's puppets. There's magnets. Like it is just like.
Are there used and?
So there is a section for used books, and that's where I got book 1 and 2 of one of Michael Sullivan's series.
Okay.
Because I was like, ooh, so there are used books and there are new books, and I thought it was really nice in there.
Nice.
It's got a really cozy atmosphere, and it's right next to a bagel shop. So if I really wanted to, I could have gone.
That's always a plus. Nice.
So So hey Tony, what are you reading?
What am I reading?
You decided you didn't want to go first, Grant. You can go last.
That's true.
Congrats.
I'm not.
Congratulations.
I didn't say anything.
Congratulations.
I'm going to tell you what I hope to start and finish, especially since it's a 96-page book. So that'll help. But all the Riff kids are leaving. But what I'm hoping to read is the first book in what will be a novella trilogy. I think the third book comes out next year. The second book just came out this month. The first book is called... Oh my gosh, I just checked it out from here. Lies of the Ajungo.
Okay.
By Moses Ose Utomi.
Okay.
The reason I've been wanting to read that book for a while because it's got a really nice cover.
Adult
Apparently, it's an adult fantasy novella. Apparently, he told his cover artist for the cover that he wanted Attack on Titan vibes with a Z, and they burped. Yeah, and then they burped up this cover that I don't know how Attack on Titan it is, but it's a cool cover, so I'm like, all right, that's...
I mean, if you show me the cover, I'll tell you.
And he was pleased with the cover, according to his notes in the back, the little acknowledgments section, so I was like, all right, obviously that's what you wanted, that's what you got, we're good. I'm more excited to read his YA, which is called, I think it's Daughters of Oduma? I think that's what it's called. I'm trying to remember But yes, we have that one too here at the Adrian District Library. We have both of them at the Adrian District Library. The only one we don't have is the sequel to the adult one.
Do you want to send me an email so I know exactly which one it is?
Sure.
And I can possibly order it maybe in like June.
Sure.
Because my April card is full to the brim of...
No, that's fine.
So much is coming out in April. Anyways.
Yes, Daughters of Oduma, yes. And it's basically about a fantasy world in which... girls on the Isle participate in an all-female fighting sport. So it's about this girl who is, at 16, quote-unquote, old and has retired from competition. So I just want to see what kind of crazy, insane world that's like. And the reason I was attracted to those particular books by this particular author is because I read am in the middle of reading an interview with him. So now I will point out what I actually am reading, because I forgot that I wanted to do this. I wanted to talk about a different kind of reading that we don't frequently talk about on this podcast, or people in general don't frequently talk about this. I'm reading Locus Magazine right now. I'm reading several issues of that.
Nice.
Because they do these like really extensive author interviews. with up-and-coming science fiction and fantasy and horror creatives. And they always go super in-depth. I've been reading their magazines for a few years now. I just sort of go on their website and handpick authors I've either read or want to read, or just people I want to know more about. Like, I've never read a Sylvia Moreno Garcia books. I own a couple of her first ones, but this is right before Mexican Gothic came out, and I wanted to. Actually, it was before it had been sold, and it was in the process of being edited when I read this. And she talked about Mexican Gothic, but she was also talking about how her major goal as an artist is to try on every genre she possibly can before she's gone, because that's not what people expect from Mexican writers, even less from Mexican female writers. And so she wanted to do that as much as possible, and Mexican Gothic was her first jaunt away from the kind of science fiction she had been writing.
I love that book so much. Do not get me started.
I love Locust Magazine for that reason, is they go in depth with authors. And if you ever just want to know where they hope their career is going to go, it's always fun to just read that and see oh, you started here and you want to go here. All right, sure. So, that's what I'm reading, Locust Magazine. And then I hope to read the books of Moses Osei Utomi.
How long has Locust been in print or whatever? Is it kind of a?
It's a mainstay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean they're in a pretty difficult position right now, as most print publications are, because even though they have done so much to digitize, they still are suffering from being able to pay everybody what they want to be able to pay everybody, to keep the magazine going and the quality that it's going in. So there have been several campaigns in the last year to draw more attention to Locust from people who don't necessarily, people who enjoy science fiction, fantasy, and horror, who don't know what Locust has provided for the community.
Is it Locust like the bug?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. It's also...
That sounds like something that
actually, no,
read,
it's not Locust like the bug. Sorry. It is... I just had to spell that again in my head. It's Locust like...
Focus, but with an L?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that word actually means... the focal point of a creative work is usually called a locus. That's why, and they really, they dig deep. They also just give you, industry news, hey, here's pictures from the Hugo Awards in case you missed them, or here's pictures from the Nebula, or here's, so they probably, the last few issues, probably have some stuff about the Hugo controversy in there. They may not, because they tend not to, commentate as much, because that's what other places across the, community, they tend to do that kind of thing. Yeah. They just give you highlights of those kinds of things. They save their searing commentary for their reviews. They don't play.
Their reviews are good?
Yes, they have consulting editors who, they read on an academic level, because a lot of their consulting editors are academics, but they're also big old science fiction and fantasy nerds from, childhood.
So you're going to have to tell me later how much a subscription...
an annual subscription? Yeah, I can do that, because they're... Locust?
For myself, because I would want to read that.
Yeah, their reviews are, at this point, I would say their reviews are better than any review platform on the planet right now.
For
period.
Science fiction, fantasy?
No, for books, period.
Okay.
Yeah, for entertainment, period, I would say, because they still do the thing that I feel is most important, which is they say, all right, here's what the book is doing. Mm-hmm. Here's why I suspect the book is doing all of those things based on what my reading experience is. And then at the end... they just sort of cap it off. They don't do that. Yeah, they don't do that whole your mileage may vary thing, which is such a big part of reviewership now. That I don't know if you clicked with this, but I didn't, or I did, and it's I don't care if you clicked with it, reviewer. Stop trying to sell me the book. Tell me what it's doing. So
give me unbiased. Thank you.
Yeah, that seems to be the focus of a lot of journalism nowadays, which is.
Yeah, so sad.
To sell.
Yeah, it is. I don't mind it from booktubers or book talkers, because that's different. They're setting up a channel with their own purposes, and they usually state those as they go along.
They are also, getting ARC copies to review, and so,
Yeah, but I could, to me, it's there's no sense in getting mad at them. It's like getting mad at a random Goodreads reviewer. It's I disagree with you.
I love reading a random Goodreads reviewer. They're fun.
To me, that's a different camp. But when the New York Times and the New Yorker start doing it, which they have, by the way, for years, I get really uncomfortable and angry because I'm like, excuse me, you are a public review publication and you have a reputation and you just threw it out? Sure. So, there's that.
Hey,
Grant, what are you reading? That was glorious.
That wasn't planned, audience.
No, it wasn't. Not at all, actually.
I will say I got I thought of Locust as well, and I was going to make a joke about the magazine coming out every 17 years, but then I realized that was cicadas. So I wisely stopped myself from doing that. So
I would
What are you reading?
Yes, what are you reading?
I'm still reading Erotism by Bataille.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes.
He's still slogging through.
I wanted to talk about movies, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yes,
go right
you
ahead.
can talk about
go
'Cause
ahead.
I've watched a lot of them recently.
Yes, go ahead.
So
No, you should.
So,
Yeah.
I watched Life During Wartime, which is a kind of sequel, kind of not sequel to Happiness, which came out in '99, I want to say.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite movies. Which that had like Philip Seymour Hoffman and a bunch of.
So we know it was brilliant.
It was brilliant. Yeah. Directed by Todd Solondz, and this continues some of the plot lines from that, and some of the plot lines from his other films.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everybody's been recast, so it's an interesting situation.
Sure.
I enjoyed it. It's not nearly as biting or as memorable as Happiness.
Okay.
But there's still some standout like individual stories from it because it follows a lot of different characters and stuff. Probably my favorite story from it is the character itself is recast, but there's a father character from Happiness that comes back. He's released from prison years later, and he tries to reconnect with his family, and that leads to all sorts of hilarious hijinks.
Well,
not really hilarious,
but just hijinks.
Hijinks. And so that was good. It was solid.
Nice.
Not to the level of its predecessors. Saw Wonka better than I thought it would be.
Was it?
It was.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you. I love that movie.
I didn't realize it was made by the people that made the Paddington movies, which I know people really like. I haven't seen them myself.
I like the Paddington.
I've not seen Paddington 2, so I can't speak for it, but Paddington 1 is glorious, and now that you remind me that it was made by the people, it makes perfect sense. Wonka and Paddington are right. If you enjoyed Wonka, what you enjoyed in Wonka, you will enjoy in Paddington. It's just not a musical, so you might enjoy it more.
Yeah, and and on the musical side of things, I really liked the musical numbers in this.
Right?
It just feels like a really wholesome family film.
Exactly. That's how I felt.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And the children who showed up to the program enjoyed it as well.
Hey, yes, that's right.
Oh, that's makes sense of how you watched it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll run through the other ones. I saw Crimes of the Future, which is the newest David Cronenberg movie.
Okay.
Same title as his first movie, no relation plot-wise.
That is gutsy.
It is gutsy.
I want to try that with a book.
I don't know if he wants it to be. I mean, I know he's making another one, but I don't know if he wants it to be like an end cap to his period
It's gonna be the same title as the other two.
Yeah,
So how differently? Like you've seen them both.
I have not seen
You've not
the
seen
original
both.
one.
Okay.
It was more or less a student film, but it was released theatrically, not unlike
Gotcha.
say like Eraserhead by David Lynch. That was
Sure.
filmed on a shoestring budget, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But this is his newest film. It takes place in a future where evolution is starting to go faster. It's like it's like outpacing
That's interesting.
humanity, like health wise. So people are starting to develop these new organs and new body parts that people and like most people have them removed and whatnot.
Yeah.
And Viggo Mortensen turns this into he's like a world famous performance artist, and he turns the operations themselves into like works of art, and he goes in beforehand and tattoos the organs and takes them out. It's a really fascinating.
Interesting.
And like most people can't feel pain anymore, which is what makes this doable. And so he's completely awake, and then his partner / love interest is the one doing it. And that's kind of a form of intimacy for them. It covers all of David Cronenberg's favorite themes.
That's very interesting.
It's kind of the most David Cronenberg movie ever.
Sure. Sure.
It was very good. I enjoyed that.
Nice.
its budget shows itself at points. I know we had some trouble getting funding for it. And then I won't take any more time. I saw some other stuff. Before The Devil Knows You're Dead, I really enjoyed that.
Okay.
Also with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Ah, yes.
Ethan Hawke. That was just a really good kind of modern noir heist movie.
Nice.
So
Nice.
anyways,
it will already have been out by the time that you are all listening to this. However, the day that we're recording this, March 19th of 2024, is the day before my Disney Plus subscription once again pays for itself because they came through with a promise I didn't even know they were going to come through with. X-Men 97 drops tomorrow.
Ooh.
Tomorrow it does.
oh, the original.
No.
The cartoon?
The reboot. It's going to be an animation, but it's a reboot.
Yeah, I was like the cartoon,
Yes,
right?
it is a reboot of the X-Men animated series from the 90s that I grew up watching that introduced me to X-Men, that made me fall in love with them.
So what you're
forever and
saying
ever
is,
and
I have a reason to watch Disney Plus at the moment.
of course. I mean,
Fantastic.
it's the animated series has been on there from jump, which was one of the reasons I bought it. I didn't know they were planning on reintroducing the X-Men, but because of where they are in the MCU and the multiverse saga, you have to have the X-Men. So they literally,
I mean, it makes sense.
They have been boxing with Sony for the last few years over Spider-Man and the X-Men. So they finally got their X-Men rights back. So they've been slowly putting X-Men movies back on Disney Plus, and I was like, what are they doing that for? And then they announced a couple months ago they were doing a reboot of the X-Men 90s animated series, and I was like, done. I'm here. I'm done. I do not like the voice actor that they chose for Wolverine because I'm assuming that I don't know, but I know that the voice actor is different because he reads the dialogue differently than the 90s one, and that would be quite a shame if he is as terrible as I think he's going to be, because he's not. He doesn't get it. If they didn't hire Hugh Jackman, I'm going to be angry, and if they did hire Hugh Jackman, I got questions, Hugh, because I think he's the best piece of casting that I've ever seen in any superhero franchise, period. Him as Wolverine, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me on that. If you disagree with me on that, what's wrong with you?
I mean, at the moment, I can't disagree with you.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't think of
exactly.
anything, so.
Maybe in the future, at some point, they'll hire somebody for Batman that's absolutely perfect. They haven't done it yet. And all you Christopher Reeves fans, calm down. Because I'm right. Anyway, I'm done. Tokyo Ghoul. Volume 1.
Yeah.
Erin?
Let's talk about, are they actually, what are they? Are they like vampires? Are they like zombies? Are they like,
well, they're ghouls.
I know.
I mean,
I'm just throwing that out there. What are they?
I mean, ghouls, historically, they're believed to eat human flesh, right? In mythology?
Mythologically? I honestly don't know very much about ghouls mythologically.
I mean, I don't. I think I've heard that. Kind of similar to jinn in the desert, where they...
well, jinn are actually very, very interesting, because I once read this article from I want to say it was an Iranian writer. I could be wrong, but they were... Oh, okay, nice. I know they were Middle Eastern in their heritage, but they wrote a huge article that I read on Tor.com years ago about basically how jinn are the fairies of the Middle Eastern mythological world.
Nice.
And they gave all these examples, and I was like, oh, that makes them so much more, because they are more interesting than we tend to see in the Western world, or than we tend to, appreciate in the Western world. So I feel like ghouls are probably, all mythological creatures are, right? As for Tokyo Ghoul,
anyways, so
I have a question for the person who chose this book.
Well, before we continue with your question, let me just preface this by saying this is a continuation of our book discussion series that we started last episode.
Yes.
And so this is my pick, which I chose Volume 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. There is going to be a connection in a couple more episodes onto why I chose Tokyo Ghoul.
Oh, that was the question I was going to ask. Why?
Well,
so now you
so
can
that's
answer.
one of the answers.
Yes.
So one of the answers is I knew about the series, and I've known about it for a while, and it's just one of those things that I've never actually just spent the time to pick up and look at.
Sure.
And so I was like, this would be a great way to read it and then turn around and have other people, so I can turn around and go, what did you think about this thing? And so those kind of things. Followed by the fact that I hadn't seen the anime yet, and I know for a fact, from what I can see online, discourse-wise, there is always some weird mixed review where everyone always says that the manga is infinitely better than the anime, and you see that a lot. You see that a lot,
happens, yeah.
But this one is more viscerally said.
Oh, so there's something that people don't appreciate about the anime.
Yeah, and it is like something, and I don't know what it is, and so I want to find out.
Sure.
So I chose this one because I wanted to get into it. 2, we're expanding our adult manga collection,
Yes.
and so this is one of the series that I am focusing on to like expand upon / we didn't have it, and so I was like, this should be a staple. If we have My Hero Academia, we should have this staple in here too.
Yeah.
Especially because of how popular it was at like certain points and
Yeah, it
things
has
like
been.
that.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those that we're working on. I'm working on, and so I was like, let's just throw that in the bag. Let's do something, and then I knew that you two might end up bookending something like completely like either academic or completely unhinged. And so I decided to also put something.
It does seem to oscillate sometimes.
So I
Between the
decided.
two of us, that's true, yeah.
I decided to put something more like normal into the hat.
Hey. I went normal. I chose 2
I know you
fantasy
did,
novels.
which surprised me.
One is perfectly mundane, and the
Which
other one
surprised me for like 2 seconds.
you might have feelings about.
I want to know which is which.
Yeah, right. Well,
But anyway, so that's why I chose it.
Sure.
Quick, synopsis: it's Tokyo Ghoul follows Kaneki Ken, and Kaneki is he's 18. He is just starting college, and he basically is kind of like shy and introverted. That's like kind of his personality at first. And he and his friend Hide like to frequent a coffee shop, and he keeps like looking at this lady, and he's like, oh my god, she's so pretty, and he wants to ask her out, and he's like really doesn't want to, and then Hide's like go,
Because
and
that's who Hide is.
that's who Hide is as a character.
Yes, very
And
much.
him as a character as a whole, from what I can see so far and from what I know, is the reason why a lot of things happens. But that's a little bit too much of a
That's
spoiler.
interesting. Okay, I could see that. Okay.
And so he asks out the girl. There is 2 different like types of people who live in the world. You have your humans and you have your ghouls. And ghouls are people who basically eat flesh. They're basically like zombie vampire things. And they are kind of like, people know that they exist, and they're not supposed to go out at night just on the off chance that, they can get eaten. But, do people really pay attention to that? No. But it's one of those things. I know you have thoughts. And so...
Who would just go out having been warned not to, I don't
Kaneki
know.
goes on a date.
I mean, there's clear guidelines. I
Right?
don't understand.
Kaneki goes on a date with the girl that he thinks is pretty in the cafe, and she turns out to be a ghoul, and basically... she tries to kill him. And he ends up reciprocating back because it's like, self-defense at this point. And he gets put into like surgery, and they use her organs.
Well, because a building falls on them.
Yes.
And
they use her organs to go into him to try to save him.
Yes, because he needs an organ transplant, yeah.
And he basically turns into this weird, like, half human, half ghoul mix.
Yes.
And so he very much has the, like, part of him that is like, oh my god, this is disgusting. Like, I hate everything about this. But he also has the other side of him that he's currently fighting, which is like, I need to survive right now. What are you doing to me?
Yeah.
Like, let me do this. And then his other side is like, I'm a monster. I can't eat anything. This cake tastes disgusting.
Yeah, because all the food turns, all the human food.
That's why I said vampires, because
absolutely disgusting.
you have your, what is it, like Twilight, where they're like, if they eat food, it tastes like dirt.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's why I keep throwing
this is
that
one
in
of
there.
my... So, I am glad you brought up Twilight, actually.
Did you also get Twilight vibes?
No, I did not. My problem with Tokyo Ghoul is a similar problem that I have with Twilight and Hunger Games.
Yes.
It's a world-building problem.
Yes.
Now, before I start with that, because you know where this could go if I start with that, I have to say, from the things that I enjoyed, I really enjoyed the character setup of Kaneki and Hide. There's nothing revolutionary in it.
They're just best friends.
Anime manga does this all the time, where, the central character is one particular emotion to the 100th power, and then their best friend is usually the exact opposite, because
it makes sense.
It makes for a perfect dynamic. It is an easy dynamic, but it's perfect. It makes you see this in, for example, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood with the two brothers. one has one personality, the other has the exact opposite personality.
Yeah. And it just works.
It works. It's incredible. So I enjoyed that, even though it's not revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hide is just fun. Everyone needs a friend like Hide who just is enthusiastic about the world and about life and about everything. Things might change based on where I am in Volume 1 because Hide's not...
Where are you at in Volume 1?
Hide is about to become dinner. That's where I'm at. You cannot say anything else because I'm going to finish this volume.
I know you are.
I don't know if I'm going to go any further than this volume, but I'm going to finish this volume because I want to know. Because they've attacked my favorite character, and I need to know what happens.
See, now I just want to know what happens anyways because I'm now on Volume 2.
But I also need to understand, like, there's something interesting about Kaneki as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Again, nothing revolutionary because you see this all the time with... Midoriya as well.
Yeah.
Slight difference between Midoriya and Kaneki, which I actually appreciate about Midoriya. Kaneki's all internal monologue.
Yes.
Because of the kind of character he is.
Yes.
He's so shy.
Absolutely.
He doesn't, he's a loner.
Which is why I love his character.
So I love how literary obsessed he is, which is really fun.
If you do MBTI, like the typology where it's like the introvert, extrovert, feeling, judgment kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, Kaneki and I are the exact same MBTI, which really makes sense as to why I love him so much as a character, because it just makes sense. Everything he does for me makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I think he's reasonably drawn. I think he's certainly exactly what you would expect from that character is exactly what you get. But he does do a lot of the heavy lifting of getting you through the story. Which I suppose is what a protagonist is supposed to do. I'm just curious as to how much longer we're going to have to put up with world-building Kaneki. Because world-building Kaneki is dull.
End of Volume 2.
Okay, good. Because the world is actually a rather simple, it's a simple concept. The concept is very basic. I feel like you don't need a whole lot of that. But there's some information that you do get that in some senses answers certain questions. But where I have a problem, and this is where my world-building problem starts.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all funneled through his character, there are other questions that I have in my brain that I'm like, I'm not confident that this story is ever going to answer those questions. It might. It's a long series. But I have doubts because I'm like, hold on. The doctors should have been able to tell that the girl was a ghoul before they surgically implanted this child with an organ, because that's how organ transplants work. I don't care if you're transplanting an organ from, wherever you're transplanting it from. That's not my problem. The problem is the extreme amount of care you have to take to perform an organ transplant in order for the human body not to reject the organ. From human to human is extraordinary. There are waiting lists years long. And this is in Tokyo, according to the title.
Yes, it is.
You mean to tell me that a child was an 18-year-old. An 18-year-old was emergency rushed to the hospital. And a human doctor was like, we got an organ spare from this other body that died. And I'm going to take... Now, mind you, the story does its due diligence. A little bit. The doctor that performs the surgery gets a lot of heat from it, right? And you only see a small snippet of the television interview or whatever, and then the other characters as they respond to it are talking about it a little bit. The ghouls are talking about it, the humans are talking about it, so it's in the air that the doctor is on trial for this, right? But I'm looking at this going, wait a minute, who did the surgery? Because organ transplant teams of people work on this. You mean to tell me an entire team of surgeons were like, yeah, this is verifiable, let's go? I don't think so. And again, they tried to cover it. The doctor who performed the surgery, the hospital's named after him? But I was just like, I don't buy it.
So are you going to continue reading after this volume?
I don't know. I have to get to the end of the volume because I feel like it's probably going to be a cliffhanger. Probably.
It is. So this is something. This is a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
So it's slightly dark. Needs to just kind of be put out there.
Well, yeah.
You mentioned that it was kind of a plot hole that you were like,
It's a major plot hole.
It's not. It's not. They run around with it later. There's an actual reason. There's an actual reason.
That they botched the surgery?
That his organs were transplanted with.
You mean that hers were transplanted into his body?
Yes. So there's an actual thing. The doctor. So the thing that you have to realize in Tokyo Ghoul, and they haven't gotten there yet, and they will not get there until maybe by the end of Volume 2, Volume 3.
Sure.
Is there are multiple branches of ghouls.
Oh, well, yeah.
There are multiple different trees, and they call them trees.
Sure.
So you have, as you could tell so far, the cafe. The cafe is one tree branch.
Sure.
Then there is and you will see them a little bit later. They're not exactly spoilers, but they call them the CCG, and they're basically the police department for the ghouls, those kind of things.
Sure.
They're another tree branch. Sure. Then there are a couple other different tree branches.
Sure.
And you can kind of consider the CCG as kind of a super secret, not really super secret though. They exist. Everyone knows they exist, but they're kind of you know, how our U.S. government has branches where they're we know that they exist, and we know technically we're supposed to trust them, but
the FBI and the CIA.
But they do horrible things on the sly.
Oh, you mean the police?
Yes, to all of that. But anyways,
I say as a queer black person unapologetically.
The CCG is similar to that.
Okay,
Your doctor.
They're more like a task force.
Your doctor, the doctor that performed this operation, was a part of the CCG.
Okay, understandable. Here's the problem with that.
But they run it around later. There's an actual reason that I'm not going to spoil later on.
Sure.
But there are actual plot reasons that occur.
But that leads to my second problem that I'm discovering in Volume 1, which is why I was not surprised that Volume 1 will end with a cliffhanger. This writer feels like he's 18.
Yes.
And he might have been when he was writing this. I don't know. So. But it feels very much to me like the part of, I feel like this is a strength and a weakness, right? Mm-hmm. The strength of it is he pulls you right in. I mean, the immediacy effect is really
you put it in there.
Gonzo. And I think that's something that young creatives have the ability to do just by the sheer force of their ideas, you know? So I think that he certainly is very, very good at that. But then the flaw side to me is I don't know how much he's written before this, but the episodic nature of manga is not his friend because there are a lot of things that if he had been forced to complete the story before sending it out to publishers or anything, he would have thought through a little more and front loaded a bit more because again, was the whole team CCG members? How? I need to know before Volume 1 ends because
you're not going to,
this child, 18-year-old, is walking around with organs in his body, and I'm still back at the part where they said the doctor. I'm wait, how? So
they do reference it later. If you watch the anime, it's more revealed by the end of the first season.
I would imagine, yeah.
So Tokyo Ghoul is split up into the first season, and then there's Tokyo Ghoul Re, which is Response, which is the second season of the show.
Sure. Okay.
And so something also that's slightly spoilery, but not really. Because it's kind of mentioned straight out, is he's half human, half ghoul.
Right.
And so he's trying to decide, and he's trying to come across to himself and go all of this human food tastes terrible, but I don't want to be a monster and eat all the humans.
Right.
Because he's what am I supposed to do with this? He's having an emotional, intense crisis.
Sure, yeah.
He's having an identity crisis.
Well,
because
he would.
known...
Yeah.
And as much as everyone loves the one girl, and I can't remember her name at the moment, the love interest girl, not Rize, but whatever.
Tuka?
Yeah.
She's a love interest girl? I loathe her already.
I do too. But anyway.
Not even honestly because she herself is a problem. I don't like that kind of character, generally.
Her character's not really that nice at the moment, from what I can tell. I don't really care for her.
And again, I don't mind rude characters. I just don't understand why.
She's kind of like, her characters, she sits there and she's like, well, what is it like? She has no sympathy for him for going through this whole
because she's never been human.
Because she's never been human.
Right.
But, like, at the same time, I can have some sympathy for him because, like, you go through one of those transformations and it could be mental, it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be identity. Like, you could go from being straight and then all of a sudden realizing one day, oh, I never was. And that's a whole entire identity crisis that you have to go through because you have to go, do I really feel this way? Like, what is that like? And Kaneki is currently going through that at the moment.
He is.
And so, if he doesn't want to eat humans and he can't stomach human food, what is there left for him?
Right. Which I think the balance of that is handled well, including in the situation that I am, like, the chapter that I'm on, which is so close to the end.
The question is, what is left for him?
That's the question the story has to answer. I don't know. That's the
I mean,
drive.
I know the answer, but, like, when you realize the answer to the question of, like, I can't do either one of these things because I feel like a monster.
Sure.
And then you get to the point where he comes to the realization of what he should be doing.
Sure.
The whole entire... Because this is supposed to be a horror manga, by the way. Eventually.
I didn't find it very scary.
I know.
It doesn't reach there yet because they're trying to set you up to feel like this is just going to be like a shonen.
Again, why I felt like it was Amateurville, because,
once he reaches that point where he realizes it, immediate switch. Just immediate flip.
Sure.
Like, he still has, like, his moments.
Yeah.
But, like, there is just, like, a flip. Like, a switch has been flipped. It is, like...
And is this from what you've heard, or...?
This is from what I'm reading so far and from what I know of the show.
In volume 2. Yeah. I don't know. I just think
Granted, right now not much has happened, but the character who's giving him it's Uta, so all the fangirlies will know exactly who I'm talking about when I say this. I'm like, Uta's very pretty, and you just know it. And he's just very gender fluid, and you can just tell.
I suppose. Yeah, I haven't gotten that far. Grant!
You haven't given us any thoughts.
Yes, what did you think?
It's just me and Tony aren't, like, yelling at each other.
Yeah, I mean, I had thoughts, so I just had to get them out.
I mean, part of that is because I didn't get very far in it. I have to admit, I kind of skimmed through it in a mad dash last night, a mad frenzy.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Tony. It's a very simple setup, like, as far as the world building goes. Like, kind of just the dichotomy between humanity and then the ghouls and how they meet and interrelate and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's not my cup of tea, I guess.
You're not a manga person in general.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience in manga.
Sure.
True, that is true. Yeah, I mean, I just don't have anything more in depth to say than what Tony and you have already said. I like the art style. Do you know did the author also draw it himself, or like is he like a?
I think so. On author illustrator.
Author illustrator is.
Yeah, there's only one name attributed.
Okay.
So that usually means that and that's pretty. Erin, you might be able to attest to this better than I can, but from what I can tell, that's pretty standard.
No, that's very standard.
In manga? Okay.
Story and art is by the same person. Okay. I'm looking at the little thingy right now.
Okay. Which is always impressive.
That is usually how that works and functions.
Usually, yeah.
Granted, there is something else that, like, you see this in My Hero Academia, too, is, especially because, so this is not a weekly. My Hero Academia is a weekly.
Is a weekly, right.
So there are two separate, ways of going here. So with Tokyo Ghoul not being a weekly and it's coming out in book format, he can focus the author. I don't know if it's a male or a female.
I don't either. I'm gonna guess male just because of certain particular failures that I find common in male writers. Which may be unfair, but men step up.
Do you think the love interest is one of those?
Yes.
More than likely, yes. But I don't think that that's necessarily a male author thing. I think that's manga character type kind of thing.
Manga leans very heavily on stereotypes of different personalities.
They do. Which, I mean, Western fiction has its own stereotypes. Just because manga stereotypes are different than ours doesn't mean that, we're less or more.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's
they lean heavily on stereotypes, but the thing is with this, he can focus more on doing it all by himself, doing all these things.
Because he doesn't have, like, a weekly deadline.
Yes. Yeah. Horishiki, who does My Hero Academia, or Kishimoto, who does Naruto, they don't have the same luxury as he does with, like, doing it all by himself.
See, that doesn't help his case.
No, I know it doesn't, but I'm just explaining how there are two different manga styles.
Yeah.
So, Horishiki and Kishimoto will have a team. Like, yes, they will do things, but they have a team of people who learn how to draw exactly like he does.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know. That's really cool.
People who draw like he does so that they can get everything out on time.
That's brilliant.
A lot of manga, so, like, this is Viz Media, so, like, Viz, like, maybe Ishida later on, like, also has the same thing, because it might be a weekly. I'm not entirely sure. I've never been sure that it's a weekly or not, but, like, because it doesn't say, like, Shonen Jump or anything like that. It just says
it's not a shonen.
And if it was that, it would actually, like, show up as something like this in the Verso page, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
But with that, you could have, like, a whole entire office full of people who do draw exactly like the author does, specifically so that way they can mimic what's going on. And you see this with things like Dragon Ball. You see this with anything like Bleach, and you can see this with, like, anything like that where you have those types of features.
I know Mura had a team, and that's why they've been able to continue.
And so that's why...
Oh, for Berserk.
If you look at the volumes of My Hero Academia, there are moments in the volume where they'll be like, this editor did this drawing right here, and it's, like, got little cute, like, little filler pages of, like, different drawings.
Oh, yeah.
And that explains... You don't have this in this... in the volumes of Tokyo Ghoul, but you have that in...
So I want to make a recommendation to anyone who might be interested in Tokyo Ghoul, Volume 1 at the very least, because I can't say anything beyond that. I found a lot of common threads, even though they're very different mangas, but I found a lot of common threads between the setup in Tokyo Ghoul and the setup in Fruits Basket.
Yep.
However, okay, good. So for me, the setup in Fruits Basket, the setup of the world building, and the world building was better handled. It was also like twice the size as Volume 1 of Tokyo Ghoul, so there's more space.
Well, initially...
Technically. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Fruits
Initially
Basket
it wasn't.
Initially was that.
That's true. And so I read the more... Anyway.
And just like Tokyo Ghoul, Fruits Basket was not a weekly.
Oh, okay. So Fruits Basket Volume 1, I feel like, handles some of the things better that I, might have had, like, gripes about with Tokyo Ghoul Volume 1. I enjoyed both of them. One of the things that I appreciate about Tokyo Ghoul Volume 1 that I don't appreciate about Fruits Basket Volume 1, he handles transitions like a master. And everything else, I'm kind of like, how old were you?
Like, from scene to scene?
From scene to scene. He... seamlessly chapter breaks, seamlessly one realization to the next for a character. Fruits
actually feels like episodes.
That woman, I think it was the woman who wrote it. Whoever wrote it, the person who wrote and illustrated, I'm irritated by, not from a writing perspective, but from an illustration perspective. Because if you've never read manga before, Fruits Basket throws your head in a tailspin because you're like, wait, which part of the page am I supposed to focus on? And then just as you're beginning to figure it out, you flip and there's a huge panel. And
Natsuki.
Like 2-page panel, and you're like... So, on the one hand, Fruits Basket can be really fun as a reading experience, as a physical reading experience, because you have all these different ways that he's, like, the creator is shaping, literally, like, physically shaping the narrative. So it's fun in that sense, if you've not enjoyed manga before. But the more that I've come across manga that is more traditional in its physical shape,
I think the thing is...
I prefer this, like what he did in Tokyo Ghoul. I think he is a master of transitions.
Too, especially, like, I realize we're only reading the first volume, but, like, I think the thing is, too, is the reason why it just seems just so bare at the moment is because you only have that first volume.
Yeah, yes, that's true.
Especially with, like, plot holes, like, why are we transplanting a ghoul's organs into a human? Like, those kind of things...
Yeah.
they're setting you up with those questions.
Sure.
For later volumes so they can wrap that around. So the question then becomes is, did Ishida have that plot point in mind already when he created it? Or if he realized his plot point and had to go turn around and bring it back around?
From what I can tell of his gift as a writer, he did not have that thought through. I'm sure that someone at Viz was like, what? And then he was like,
they just popped their head into his office one day and went like,
yeah. And
what
he
did
was,
you do?
And then he probably was like, oh, this is going to be published and people are going to ask this question. Because, okay, I'll give you an example. So, She Who Shall Not Be Named, the TERF from Great Britain, was notorious for doing this while the movies were being made. So, literally as late as the Fantastic Beasts films, David, the director, Yates. David Yates.
Attenborough?
he would say...
He's still kicking.
That's true, he is. So, David Yates would say things in an interview that he thought, yeah, this is a brilliant thing that writers do. All the rest of the writers were going, no, she's just making it up while she's emailing you.
I think the funniest part is, especially with that stuff, is like, Fantastic Beasts are initially like didn't even have like a storyline in general.
Not at all.
All of this is just being made up on the fly.
Of course.
Like,
I mean, that's fun. I think that's really cool to be like, oh, cool, I have an idea, I'm going to explore it now. That's great. I don't have any problems with that. What annoys me is when someone can email you and then you send them literally an hour later pages of information and they're awed by the fact, and I'm like, no, they made it up. That's fine. And I'm glad to hear that he probably covers it up later. I expect him to do that as an episodic, because something that Neil Gaiman pointed out when he was authoring Sandman, he said that he felt for the first time he could understand what Dickens had to go through in order to complete a work, and why Dickens' work reads the way that it does, because he said that as he was reading through Dickens while he was working on Sandman, he said he was reading Dickens once and he went, oh, yeah, you're trying to cover your tail here. Because he literally had just had to solve the same problem in an issue of Sandman where he was like, uh-oh, backed myself into a corner and everyone's already read it and they love it. How do I get out of this? And so like 3 issues later, he gives you a solution. So the series could not be this popular without there being some way to cover that, you know what I mean? But so I could fully appreciate that. But there's the real deeply cynical, probably because I'm a novelist, part of me that's just like, you didn't think about it? Do you realize? Like, cool idea. Awesome idea, honestly. Conceptually, I love the idea. But the further I kept reading, the further that little part of my brain that's just trying to ignore it kept growing. And I was like, what? But at the same time, there's the other part of me that's just like, all right, Kaneki, save your friend. Come on, Kaneki, save your friend. Come on, Kaneki, save your friend. Don't know if he does it or not. And even if I did, it's a spoiler. So I'm not going to say anything.
When we watched a few of the first episodes of the first season,
which I'm actually really excited to see the end.
The first thing that I want to tell you is that the first season, so there's 12 episodes for the first season.
Okay, that's not bad.
The first season follows the first 66 chapters of this whole entire manga.
I don't want to read 66 chapters.
You don't have to. We're only watching the first few episodes.
Okay.
Chill. Because we're like...
I mean, I might change my mind.
You might change your mind, but like I'm gonna follow through with it. But like, it follows the first 66 chapters, which is like I think the first. So that's volume, and that has 8 chapters. So I think it follows like the first 5 volumes.
Oh, that's doable.
Like or something, because this one specifically, Tokyo Ghoul volume. I'm on volume 2. It has.
Oh yeah, volume 1 has 9 chapters.
Yep.
And I'm on chapter 8.
And this one goes until chapter 19.
Gotcha. Okay,
so you have the first,
So it's doing 9 chapters each.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, if it's 66 volumes, that's around probably like volume 5.
There's volume 5, because 9 times 5 is
45.
Oh wow! All right. Yep, you're right. So then 9 times 6 is what?
63?
We're book people. We're 63. That's it. That's it. Good job. No, because you know the rule of 9s and multiplication, right?
I wasn't doing that off the top of my head. I was just going, what was the next one?
Well, my next question was going to be like, what's 9 times 4? Sorry, math people. And I know one of you who listens to this, and you're a teacher, and I am not ashamed. Okay? because I know how you read, which is like an insane person. I love it, but it's like an insane person.
No, but like when you like look at that and you compare the two, like
Sure.
a lot of people like do watch the first season, like especially the second season, they're just like, because they have like such a visceral reaction. So I'm interested, like by the time we get to that point,
Yeah.
like obviously we're going to be looking at the first few episodes of the first season, so we're not going to get
Sure.
that full entire like visceral like reaction to it
Yeah.
that a lot of other fans have. But it'll be interesting to see, especially like between the three of us, how much like information changes as opposed to, because we're reading it as
Sure.
opposed to us watching it, and how much of that information changes.
Yeah.
Because that'll be something that like we talk about in a future episode of like, this is what we're looking at.
Yeah. Because adaptation always
Anime
forces
adaptations
certain
are
kinds of
always
change.
funky, especially because anime adaptations usually only cover the first few volumes, and you see this with like Fruits Basket, where Fruits Basket season 1 only covers like the first 3 volumes of Fruits Basket.
I have heard the new Fruits Basket
All right,
is
so
better.
listen, the new Fruits Basket brings back all of the old voice actors too, which makes me
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
happy, because the voice actor who does Kyo is like, anyways, but like it only covers the first like few volumes. You see the same, and this is specifically with like not really shoujo. It's like the more female slice of life school oriented shows.
Okay, yeah.
You don't see this a lot with like shonen, like My Hero Academia. And Naruto,
Yeah, no.
where
Shonen, they're going to cover everything and then add fillers.
This one, you can kind of see it, but like you can kind of see a disconnect, especially between when you go between season 1 and 2, because they only have like certain sections of it. And obviously this is more shonen as opposed to seinen, which is like the girl version of it. But like you see this with Ouran High School Host Club, where you only have the first 3 or 4 volumes is the first season of the show, and then they do not continue it whatsoever. You see this in like a lot of those kind of volumes,
Like the slice of life things.
Slice of life. You see that a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why something that they do is they have things done in arcs.
Right. Yeah.
So, granted, the one anime arc that will always get me is the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. They did the first and they did a second season, and everyone was really, really excited and waiting for it. And the second season, I think it was the second season, and it might have been the third, but it was one of like those kind of things where like it was stopping. They turned around, and this is at the time when you had to wait for all the Japanese fan subs to come out. Like it was not subbed like immediately.
Yeah.
And it was not taken in by other companies immediately. So, like, you were waiting for the Japanese fans to turn around and tell you online, yeah, this is what this episode is doing. There is a whole entire, like, Groundhog Day time loop arc in the manga of Haruhi Suzumiya, which is, like, just, like, maybe a volume, maybe, like, a few chapters in the volume. They extended it for, like, 6 episodes.
Oh.
6 or 8 episodes, and this is a 14-episode season.
Oh.
And they decided to do that to people, where they just did the same episode over and over again with minor changes.
That's actually really interesting. That sounds really fun.
It made people so angry, especially because after that, what happened is like they finished it, and then they turned around, and then the last arc at the very end was a filler arc that nobody asked for.
Well, I feel like if we had
like
choices, we would never ask for filler arcs. So, do we want to talk about next book?
Next book?
What the next book's going to be?
What is the next book?
Is it Tony's pick?
It's
It is
Tony's
Tony's pick. So that's going to be The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. Which, again, I know we've mentioned on the podcast, but we've never had a full discussion about it. So
I
that's
think
going
this
to be
will be
fun.
interesting.
And Grant doesn't have to read it because Grant's already read it. I'm rereading it right now anyway. So
Do I own this book? I guess I'll have to figure it out.
No, and neither does the industry.